Good morning, Jonathan. I am so excited to discuss running records with you. It is such a powerful tool and it's going to be so beneficial for your teaching practices.
Hello, Sarah. I'm looking forward to it.
Great! Let's jump right in. PM Benchmarks is a kit with leveled books. You select either a fiction or non-fiction book that you think is developmentally appropriate for your student. You then engage in completing a running record while the student is reading. After you have completed your running record of what the child has read, you will analyze it for errors and self-corrections. Simply put, a running record is a formative assessment tool which provides insight into a student's reading as it is happening. The running record can be done quickly and frequently. It provides a graphic representation of a student's oral reading, identifying patterns of effective and ineffective strategies used. This method was actually developed by a woman named Marie Clay, the originator of reading recovery. Running records are meant to be ongoing assessments and should be administered early in the year and repeated often throughout the year because they help you to monitor the progress of the student. These assessments are valuable because they not only give you an opportunity to learn more about the needs and strengths of your students, but also provide time to interact with individual students as they are reading to help you plan their next steps and strategies to help bump up their reading. Through a running record, teachers can obtain information about a student's use of reading strategies, information about a student's self-monitoring, an accuracy rate and error rate, self-correction rate. We'll talk more about that later. Running records can also be used to document reading progress over time, help teachers decide what students need to learn, and match students to appropriate books. I know this sounds like a lot, but completing a running record improves with experience. With practice, you will get better at doing them. Don't be too hard on yourself during your first few attempts.
Wow, that does sound like a lot. Well, I'm glad I have you to help mentor me, as this definitely seems useful, but there's a lot to learn.
Don't worry, that is why I'm breaking everything up into smaller chunks. And you know what? Running records are really important because they help you measure students' progress, plan for future instruction, provide a way for students to understand their progress, and communicate progress to parents and the school community. Assessment should measure what the teacher teaches and what students learn. Such assessments, such as running records, help teachers to discover what is working and what is needed in the teaching-learning interactions. Expert teachers use their knowledge about the students, such as their background, strengths, and weaknesses, to create lessons that connect new subject matter to the students' prior experiences.
That makes sense.
And you know what? After you have done reading a PM benchmark book and completed your running record, then you ask the child some comprehension questions, such as you get the child to retell the text in their own words and answer some literal and inference questions. Sometimes their reading is fluent, but their understanding is low, meaning they need to work on their comprehension skills. Or sometimes their reading can be very choppy and not fluent, but they have great understanding. So you would focus on reading out loud and building some fluency strategies. Identifying these needs helps you to group your students into guided reading groups based on areas of need instead of based on reading level. The goal is for the students to develop strategies that will eventually lead to them reading more independently. Any questions?
No, still listening and taking notes.
Great, let's keep going then. Using running records is a great way to ensure standard procedures or common practices are followed. This is important because it provides the educator with the ability to compare and collaborate with other educators and/or between students. Having common practices in place to complete running records also allows you as the educator to compare a student's running record today to older records and be able to quickly see any growth that has happened.
That makes sense.
And you know what? After reading, you need to analyze the running record. While you are completing the running record, it's important you use the established conventions so that you can quickly and accurately record what the reader says as they read a text or section of a text aloud. After the reading, the teacher completes an analysis. And you need to focus on things such as conventions. This is a universal set of symbols. They were developed by Marie Clay again in 1993. This allows teachers to accurately record what a child articulates as they read a text or section of a text. Using the agreed conventions ensures colleagues and other professionals can also understand and interpret the running record. This promotes consistency of approach because all stakeholders, such as other teachers, ESL teacher, spec ed teacher, principal, can see and understand a record of a student's reading at any given point in time. Here is a cheat sheet of the common conventions used when completing a running record. You also need to focus on the level of text difficulty. According to the number of errors and self-corrections, a mathematical formula is used to determine the level of text difficulty.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Well, that's great, because the next part of the running record we are going to discuss is how to properly score a completed record. The educator needs to score and use a conversion rate to calculate a percentage accuracy. When students are able to read a text with 90 to 94% accuracy, the opportunity to learn about reading and to problem solve is maximized. According to the analysis, the teacher will then group students in like groups based on learning needs and match these needs to an appropriate text. When scoring a running record, the educator needs to focus on A, error rate. That is the number of errors made during a reading. Each error is analyzed in a running record. At the point of the error, the teacher asks themselves, what source of information was the reader using when they made this error? And you want to think about 3 categories. M, S, B. M is meaning. Does it make sense? Does the error fit the context of the text? For example, the student might have substituted the word kid for child. You also need to focus on S, which is syntax or structure. Does the word sound right? So is the error uses acceptable English? So for example, the child might have substituted a for the word the. And finally, visual. Does the substituted word look right? So errors sound similar to the word in the text. For example, the child might have substituted the word pay for play. And then finally, you need to focus on the child's self-correction rate. To determine the self-correction rate of a running record, you need to add the number of self-corrections with the number of errors, and then divide by the number of self-corrections. For example, a self-correction rate of 1 to 4 means for every 4 errors, 1 is self-corrected. Anything larger than this ratio would usually signal that the reader is not attending to the text and the meaning has been compromised. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it does. Keep going.
Excellent. Now, I want to talk about something that's really important, the teacher's role.
Excellent. I was curious how that would sound and look like.
Well, Jonathan, the role of the educator is very important when it comes to implementing, scoring, and analyzing running records properly. Our role as the educator is to support students as they develop their reading skills on increasingly difficult texts. In order to do this, we need to focus on some key areas, including understanding what readers do, to understand the visible and invisible sources of information, as well as the systems of strategic actions used by effective readers. We need to observe and record what students do as they read, analyze the students' reading behaviors, design and teach lessons to help students progress as readers.
Okay, that makes sense. But do all students progress in a linear fashion?
Of course not, which is why you have to be mindful as the literacy development of a student is not linear and varies for each student. The goal is to accept children where they are and provide opportunities for them to build on their understanding. That is why running records are so beneficial, as they can be used as an ongoing and meaningful formative assessment to help educate teachers on the child's stage of literacy development. It's also really important that you integrate running records into your literacy program and establish successful rapport with your students. So as helpful as these diagnostic assessments can be, unless you were fortunate enough to have a full-time instructional aide in the classroom, it's often challenging to find time to fit these mini tests into an already jam-packed schedule. Here are a few of my ideas of squeezing the assessments into a very busy classroom. Sneak in a few minutes during silent reading. Use before and after school time. Soft entries, such as in the morning. Adding running records into your reading workshop as a center. And my personal favorite, working with a partner. This is important because one teacher could be supervising both classes while the other one is pulling out individual students. The key here is to make sure that you have a plan to make sure that all the other students are engaged on a task. Otherwise, they're going to be off task and disruptive.
Those are some great tips. I will definitely keep those in mind.
That's great to hear, Jonathan, because another part that's really important is creating a community of learners. Effective literacy instruction for junior learners is highly collaborative, with lots of opportunities for genuine discussion and interaction among students and between the student and teacher. The learners need opportunities to be given choice, take risks, practice and redefine their literacy and learning strategies, develop independence. When they do that, and you create a safe and positive environment for students to engage in, the social interactions are so important to this age group, and to explore the social nature of language and literacy. Teachers need to explicitly teach and model how to work collaboratively. When the junior classroom functions as a learning community, students and teachers learn to value and draw on the cultural and linguistic resources and prior knowledge that all students bring to the classroom. Literacy instruction in this collaborative environment includes activities and texts that A. connect to the backgrounds, cultures, and personal identities of the students, develop multicultural values, provide a wide range of positive male and female role models, provide opportunities for students to develop social responsibility and leadership skills. Another great way to do this is also to integrate literacy into all subjects. This provides opportunities to build up students' reading and writing. For example, they get to read a wide variety of books, which helps them to become strategic thinkers and problem solvers, and opportunities to apply their literacy skills in meaningful contexts. And my last tip is taking time for literacy, giving students opportunities to read and write daily. This helps them develop their literacy skills, explore different topics, engage in research and inquiry in all subject areas. Another aspect that's really important, Jonathan, is talking about active listening techniques. You need to be mindful of important questions that you as the teacher need to ask to elicit their thinking. For example, using restate and summarize. The student is asked to retell the text in their own words. Teachers, such as you, can also paraphrase the student's answers by saying things like, "So what I heard you say is that correct?" And also using explore. This is literal and inferences of different types of questions that help students reconsider their retell. You can also choose to begin your running record conference by asking questions that activate their schema and help them make connections to their prior knowledge. Using some of these active listening strategies is key to understanding and plays a central role in all communication. I know it's a lot, but I think you can definitely handle it.
I agree, Sarah. This sounds great.
Well, awesome, because another really important part when you're talking about your classroom is ensuring that you have one with diversity, equity, and accessibility for all students. It's very important that you focus on this. For example, at our current school, HFL, all students, parents, and other members of the school community are welcomed and respected. Every student is supported and inspired to succeed in a culture of high expectations for learning. To achieve an equitable and inclusive school climate, school boards and schools will strive to ensure that all members of the school community feel safe, comfortable, and accepted. We want all staff and students to feel valued for their diversity and to demonstrate respect for each other and commitment to establishing a just, caring, and inclusive classroom environment. Furthermore, you want to strive to create a caring community through these 7 principles. So engaging empathy and support through open dialogue, for example, community circles, telling your story and listening with an open mind, challenge yourself to feel uncomfortable. So for example, having hard conversations such as Black Lives Matter. Believe in and reinforce the importance of forgiveness. Acknowledge privilege and forms of bias. For example, learning about the various cultures in the classroom and include lots of differentiated instruction to support student engagement. Listen with the mind and speak from the heart. Support ongoing conversations to build community and school change. I know this can sound like a lot, but there's such important things to happen.
You're right, it is a lot, Sarah, but it sounds great, and I definitely want to strive to create a community of learners.
That's awesome to hear, Jonathan, because Creating an inclusive education can be based on principles of acceptance and inclusion for all students. Students need to see themselves reflected in their curriculum, their physical surroundings, and broader environment in which diversity is honored and all students are respected. It is also the process of actively working to acknowledge and shift power towards inclusiveness, accessibility, equity, and social justice.
Wow, Sarah, this sounds great. But how do I keep this all organized?
Great question, Jonathan. Here are some tricks to keep everything organized. Create a schedule for assessing students. Assign each student a day of the week or month to make sure each student has a running record that is updated regularly. Keep a data notebook with a section for each student that includes their running record. Running records should show that students are reading at a higher level and with increased accuracy. That's our goal. And you should ensure that you're doing lots of assessment as learning. So for example, set goals with your students. Set an annual goal around reading behavior they want to strengthen, the level that they need to be reading on, or the number of levels they would like to advance. And at each conference, talk about how they are progressing towards their goal and what they can do to improve between running records. Well, that's it. You're all set to start doing your own running records.
Thanks for all the support and wisdom. I'm excited to embark on this journey.